The old house stood silent, its presence looming like a ghost from the past. Dark windows watched like eyes holding secrets of a bygone era. Inside, dust danced in the pale moonlight, creating an eerie, almost magical atmosphere. A young couple, Sarah and Mark, stepped inside, their hearts pounding with a mix of excitement and trepidation. They had just inherited the house from a distant relative they barely knew, a mysterious figure who had passed away under strange circumstances. They didn't know its secrets, nor the dark history that seemed to cling to every corner. A chill ran down Sarah's spine. Something wasn't right. The air felt heavy, almost suffocating. In the attic, a forgotten trunk lay hidden, covered in years of dust and cobwebs, as if it had been deliberately concealed. Covered in cobwebs, it held a terrifying secret. Mark heaved it open with a sense of foreboding. Inside, a beautiful antique wedding dress lay folded, its fabric shimmering in the dim light. It was pristine, untouched by time. But something felt off, as if the dress held a story of its own. An unsettling feeling washed over them. The air grew colder, and the shadows seemed to move. Why was it hidden away? What secrets did this dress hold? They couldn't shake the feeling that they were not alone. Among the items in the trunk, they found old photographs, faded and yellowed with age, depicting a woman in the very same dress. The woman in the photographs looked eerily similar to Sarah. The resemblance was uncanny, almost as if she was staring at her own reflection from the past. Beneath the photographs, they discovered an old, leather-bound diary with a lock. The key was nowhere to be found. They tried to open it, but the lock wouldn't budge. It was as if the diary was guarding its secrets fiercely. Sarah felt a growing sense of unease. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that the house itself was alive and aware of their presence. Shadows seemed to move on their own, and the creaking of the old house sounded like whispers in the dark. Holding hands tightly, Sarah and Mark knew they had to uncover the truth, no matter how terrifying it might be. With determination, they descended the staircase, ready to face whatever secrets the house held. They found themselves in an old library, filled with ancient books and forgotten knowledge. The answers they sought might be hidden within these pages. As they searched through the dusty volumes, they hoped to find clues that would unravel the mystery of the house and the woman in the dress. The flickering candlelight cast eerie shadows on the walls, adding to the sense of dread that hung in the air. Suddenly, they discovered a hidden compartment in one of the bookshelves. Inside they found a letter, sealed with wax. With trembling hands they opened the letter and began to read. The words revealed a tragic love story, a tale of betrayal and loss that had haunted the house for generations. As they read, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. The woman in the dress was a bride who had been left at the altar, her heart broken and her spirit trapped in the house. In the moonlight they saw her ghostly figure, a bride forever waiting for her groom. The chilling discovery had revealed the house's darkest secret. With a sense of closure, Sarah and Mark left the house, knowing they had uncovered the truth and freed the spirit that had been trapped for so long. The next day, Sarah took the dress to an antique shop. She had heard whispers about this place, a shop filled with relics of the past, each item holding a story, a secret waiting to be uncovered. "Do you know anything about this?" she asked the shopkeeper, her voice trembling slightly. She had a feeling that this dress was more than just a piece of fabric. His eyes widened as he took a closer look. "It belonged to a bride," he whispered, "a bride who died on her wedding day." His voice was barely audible, as if he was afraid the walls might hear. A chill ran down Sarah's spine. She had always been skeptical of ghost stories, but something about the shopkeeper's tone made her believe. The shopkeeper continued, his voice hushed and filled with a sense of urgency. "They say she was buried in that dress, locked in a box. The box was never found, and some believe her spirit still roams, searching for it." Sarah hurried home, her mind racing. The bride in the box. Could it be true? She couldn't shake off the feeling that she had stumbled upon something far bigger than she could comprehend. That night, the wind howled, as if echoing the cries of the lost bride. The trees outside her window swayed violently, casting eerie shadows on her walls. The old house creaked and groaned, each sound amplifying her growing sense of unease. Every creak felt like a whisper, every groan like a distant cry. Sarah couldn't shake off the feeling of dread. She felt as if she was being watched, as if the bride's spirit was right there with her, waiting for something. She knew something was coming. The air was thick with anticipation, and Sarah felt a cold sweat break out on her forehead. She clutched the dress tightly, wondering if she had made a grave mistake by bringing it home. The dress seemed to have a life of its own, its fabric rustling softly as if whispering secrets of the past. Sarah stared at it, her mind filled with questions. Who was the bride? What happened to her? And why did she feel such a strong connection to this dress? Determined to find answers, Sarah decided to dig deeper. She grabbed a flashlight and headed to the attic where she had stored some old family documents. Maybe, just maybe, she could find a clue. As she rummaged through the dusty boxes, she found an old photo album. Flipping through the pages, she came across a photograph that made her heart skip a beat. It was a picture of a bride wearing the same dress. The resemblance was uncanny. Sarah's hands trembled as she held the photograph. Could this be the bride the shopkeeper spoke of? The mystery deepened, and Sarah knew she was on the brink of uncovering a long-lost secret. With a newfound determination, Sarah closed the photo album and made a vow to uncover the truth, no matter what it took. The secrets of the antique shop had only just begun to reveal themselves, and Sarah was ready to face whatever came next. That night, Sarah heard it. A soft whisper coming from the attic. Curiosity and fear warred within her. She slowly climbed the stairs. The attic door creaked open. A cold breeze hit her face. And then she saw her. A ghostly figure stood in the moonlight. A woman in a white dress. Her face was pale, her eyes filled with sadness and rage. Sarah gasped. The figure turned, locking eyes with her. Then she vanished. Terror gripped Sarah's heart. She raced back to Mark, her breath catching in her throat. "She's here," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. "The bride." Mark listened intently as Sarah recounted the ghostly encounter. He dismissed it as a nightmare, but deep down, a seed of doubt was sown. As days turned into nights, the ghostly occurrences intensified. Whispers turned into chilling cries. Cold spots sent shivers down their spines. The haunting presence of the bride made itself known. They couldn't ignore it anymore. Something was terribly wrong. Section 5. Unlocking the Mystery. Determined to uncover the truth, Sarah delved into the history of the house. She spent countless hours in the dimly lit room, surrounded by the musty smell of old books and documents. Each page she turned, each document she examined brought her closer to the heart of the mystery. She discovered old newspaper clippings that painted a vivid picture of the past. A tragic tale began to unfold before her eyes, one that had been buried and forgotten for decades. The story was about a young bride, full of hope and dreams, who had been cruelly betrayed by her lover. On what was supposed to be the happiest day of her life, she took her own life in a moment of despair and heartbreak. She was buried in her wedding dress, which was then locked away in an old wooden box. This box, along with the dress, held the key to the mystery that Sarah was determined to solve. Just like the shopkeeper had said, the box and the dress were more than just relics of the past. They were the remnants of a tragic love story that had ended in sorrow and death. The box, the dress, the ghost. These were the pieces of the puzzle that Sarah needed to put together. The ghostly figure of the bride, forever trapped in her wedding dress, haunted the old house, seeking something that had been lost to her. It all made sense now. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, and Sarah could see the bigger picture. The tragic bride was back, and she was not at peace. The bride was back, and she was seeking revenge. Her spirit, filled with anger and sorrow, roamed the dark hallways of the house, looking for justice for the wrongs done to her. But who was she targeting, and why? These questions haunted Sarah as she tried to piece together the final parts of the mystery. The answers were elusive, hidden in the shadows of the past. Sarah needed to find out. She was determined to uncover the truth, no matter how dark or terrifying it might be. The fate of the bride's restless spirit depended on it, and Sarah knew she had to bring closure to this tragic tale. Section 6. The Night of Terror. One night, a violent storm raged outside, mirroring the fear inside the house. The wind howled like a banshee. Rain lashed against the windows. Suddenly the lights flickered and died, plunging the house into darkness. Sarah and Mark huddled together, their hearts pounding. Then, they heard it. A blood-curdling scream. It came from the attic. Sarah and Mark exchanged terrified glances. They knew they had to face their fear. They slowly climbed the stairs, each step heavy with dread. Section 7. Confronting the Ghostly Bride. In the attic, the ghostly bride appeared before them, her eyes burned with a cold fire. She raised her arms, her sorrow transforming into vengeful rage. "You shouldn't be here," she hissed, her voice echoing through the attic. Sarah stood her ground. "We just want to help," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "Tell us what happened." The ghost glided closer, her sorrowful eyes boring into Sarah's. Section 8. The Truth Unveiled. The ghost revealed her tragic story. Betrayed by her lover, she had been driven to take her own life. Her restless spirit was bound to the dress, to the box, to the house. She wanted peace. She wanted her story told. She wanted justice. Sarah listened intently, her heart filled with pity for the tormented spirit. She promised to help the bride find peace. The ghost nodded, a flicker of hope in her eyes. "Find my diary," she whispered, her voice fading. "It holds the truth." Section 9. Trapped in the attic. Suddenly, the attic door slammed shut. The wind howled, rattling the windows. Mark and Sarah were trapped. Panic surged through Sarah. They had to get out, but how? The old house seemed to be closing in on them. The air grew heavy, making it hard to breathe. They searched frantically for another way out. A small window, nailed shut, offered a glimmer of hope. Mark threw his weight against it. The wood splintered. They had a chance. Section 10. A desperate escape. With a final burst of adrenaline, Mark broke the window open. The storm raged outside. Rain lashed at their faces. But they didn't hesitate. They climbed out onto the roof, clinging to the slippery tiles. Below them, the ground seemed miles away. The wind threatened to rip them from their precarious perch. They had to keep moving. They had to escape the house and the vengeful spirit within. Section 11. Will they survive? Will they make it out alive? Or will the vengeful bride claim them as her own? The storm raged on, the fate of Sarah and Mark hanging precariously in the balance.